Welcome back to Ambitious, Awakened, and Aligned. Today I'm joined by the incredible Dr. Lynise Green, a wellness and leadership development consultant, strategist, and award winning expert who helps high performing leaders shift from burnout to balance. With over 25 years in engineering, strategic planning, and organizational transformation, and more than 14 years as a naturopath, nutritional consultant, and master herbalist, Dr. Green brings a rare mix of analytical precision and holistic wisdom. We love that in our community. Named WELCOA's top wellness professional in America, she guides leaders and organizations to pause with intention, lead with purpose, and create sustainable success from the inside out. In this conversation, we're diving into the truth about leadership and well being, why you don't have to choose between success and your health, and how aligning your energy across body, mind, and spirit can transform the way you live and lead. So let's welcome Dr. Green. Dr. Lynise Green, it is amazing to welcome you to the podcast today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I feel like there's so many directions we could go because you've had such a fascinating path. And we talk on this podcast a lot about things that we used to see as either or, and we want to merge them into coexisting. And so, like, having the opportunity to meet you and see how you are bringing worlds together, we're deeply aligned. So your journey has been this blend of engineering, strategy, and holistic wellness,
Yeah.
which we never used to hear in the same conversation. So share the through line on that. Like, what brought you from the boardroom to naturopath, and how do these worlds really connect for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. It always felt a little weird to talk about it, but the first degree was in mechanical engineering, which is all about systems, right? How do
Mhm.
systems work? And then through some other interesting twists and turns, I got into naturopathy and then nutrition and a whole bunch of other stuff. But what I realized in naturopathy and learning about the body and how it works, how it responds to stress and food and all the things that we do, like the body is a system. So that engineering thinking really played out very nicely when it came to now looking at the body as a system. And for me, the difference, especially being a naturopath, is that um, I'm not trying to like figure out how to take things out of the system. Like I want them to all work together very well. So,
Mhm.
and the same thing with wellness and leadership. How do those things come together to support you being effective and great at what you do?
Mhm. At what point did you recognize that these needed to come into alignment? Was there something in your own personal journey, or was it sort of a slow burn to just start to see them?
Yeah, definitely my own personal journey years ago when I was still in the engineering program management world. I had my own bout of burnout. And I always say the one time I was like ahead of the curve, it's never fashion or anything like that. But I was burned out before burnout was even a thing. And
Or it was cool.
before it was cool, right? Because now
Yeah.
everybody's burned out. It's like a badge of honor people wear.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, for years, just really trying to figure out like what just happened and how can we make sure that it never happens again. And I didn't have the resources or the support or people who really understood it, way back then. And then when I went and got the doctorate degree, the ND, and started doing more work in nutrition and stress and that kind of thing, um, I was working with a lot of people as clients who were experiencing the same thing, and we started kind of putting the pieces together. Eventually, I went back into corporate wellness, and so then I had colleagues, particularly women, who were wearing that badge of honor and just still didn't know where to turn. So, yeah, it's definitely my own personal struggles that got me here, but now having a better understanding and framework for how to help other people.
Yeah, I think that we almost have to go through that journey to have such a deep awareness and passion for the truth of the importance of this.
Yeah.
Because I was wearing it as a badge of honor in corporate myself, and then diagnosed with autoimmune after I was ignoring the burnout for long enough. And until you're brought to this place, sort of like the old cliche of brought to your knees to go, this is not how life is to be experienced. This
Yeah.
does not feel like any element of aliveness, right?
Right.
So, but I still think you had so much courage at the time for you to have merged these, because even now in boardrooms, I'm seeing resistance. Even now, when we know what we know, what we know. Are you finding that resistance still? Are you seeing more openness, and where you're seeing it, what's different in the environments that you see the openness maybe?
Yeah, I think in general, I think there is still a lot of, resistance or denial. I'm not sure
Ooh.
what exactly to call it because we have normalized being exhausted and just pushing through. It's because it's what everybody else is doing. Heaven forbid I don't show up looking as strong. I'm gonna miss out. I'm gonna fall behind. And so that hustle culture, always on, always grinding, we've normalized that. And so with that comes the normalization of not taking care of yourself and not sleeping and not eating and not moving and, all of the things that help you to be well. So I think in some respects there is there's still that normalization and a little bit of that denial. But like you said, I think
Mhm.
more people are coming to the conclusion that like this isn't sustainable. I can't keep this up, and whether it's just because something inside is just making them feel so miserable or honestly like their bodies are just going like we're down. We're done here from, and
If
they
you're not gonna listen to us, guess what? We're gonna find a way to shut you down.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yes, yes. So
Oh my
hopefully
goodness.
we can help people not get to that point,
Well,
but
and you are. I mean, you are. It's one person, one conversation at a time.
yeah.
And obviously you've had many of those because you've been named WELCOA's top wellness professional in America. What did this recognition mean to you, and what does it even reflect in what we just talked about, the evolution of workplace well-being?
Yeah, it really does reflect the willingness and the openness to consider a shift um at the individual level and at the corporate level. What is well-being doing? Because a lot of companies have corporate wellness programs. And the question, always comes back to ROI. What is this doing for me? My claims aren't going down. But now I think it's an opportunity to ask people to look at at wellness at that level differently.
Mhm.
I always say that, and I've run many corporate wellness programs, but I always say that they are very aspirational, I think,
Mhm.
in the way that they work, in the way that they're presented, right? So you've got a group of people and what you're talking to them about is everything that's ideal about wellness, sleep 8 hours and manage your stress and meditate and eat perfectly and, exercise 5 days a week. And the reality is, most people's lives are not that well balanced or in harmony to be able to do that. So you're speaking to a really small group of people, which is why you don't get the ROI and the things because you're not addressing people where they really are. So, yeah, so the award I think really did sort of say, hey, so, what you're thinking about, what you're talking about,
Mhm.
it's time. It's time.
So how do you look at that differently? Because that resonates so deeply with me, where almost even I was thinking about conscious leadership. All these kind of words we're throwing around consciousness, wellness. It's it's not the way that we've been approaching it with inside of corporations for the most part
Mhm.
is the same as we've always been approaching it. Like it's something that we can come and train you
Mhm.
and share some information on how you can again one of the things I notice with leaders is, wow, let's have another check mark of things that you have to execute on
Right.
versus that the body is a system being deeply connected to something. So how do you approach it so that it's coming at it from a different angle where it can really resonate with people?
Yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes I have to tailor my approach to what people are, especially in that business world, what people
Mm,
are accustomed to hearing. And then how do you take that and apply that to the individual, right? So I work with lots of senior people who are super concerned about like KPIs, right? These
right.
key performance indicators. And so okay, you're used to that. That resonates with you. It means something. It gets you up in the morning. So let's talk about your personal KPIs, right? What are your
Love that.
personal key performance indicators? What things do you need to keep check on for yourself to
Mhm.
make sure that you are meeting your goals, operating at your best? Oh, okay, I get it now. Because I do this for my business, I don't do this for myself. So
No.
sometimes you just have to, like, change the language to something that they can relate to, and then it's like, "Oh, I get that whole concept. Yes, that makes sense. Let's maybe I'm not performing at my best, but what
Mhm.
things indicate that for me?" So that's one of the tricks of the trade that I
I love
use to
that.
make it
Using their
resonate.
language and meeting them where they are.
Yeah.
It's, this trend of still believing you have to choose between
Mm.
success. I guess I can't even call it a trend because it's been so long term, but
Mm.
this truth that exists in our business world today of choosing between success and well-being.
Mhm.
Why do you think so many still feel like that today with everything that we know?
Yeah. I think because nobody is telling us any differently, honestly. It's so funny that you bring that up. I just published a blog article on my, website that talks about this. It doesn't have to be either or, it can be both and.
Mm,
And it talks about this shift in mindset from that either I can be ambitious or I can be healthy, I can be successful or, I can have peace. And it's like, no, you can have both, So yeah, I just wrote an article on that, but I think it's because nobody is presenting this different way of thinking to
mhm.
people. I met with someone last week, and he is like an executive coach. He does a lot of work in that space, but he coaches what I call the hard skills like time management, conflict resolution, which is important, right? That stuff is
Yes.
really important.
Yeah.
So when I'm talking to him about my approach and it's like, yeah, wellness is that foundation for effective leadership. And I explained to him kind of here's what I do, here's how I think. And it was funny. He told me, he was like, I have to be honest. When I first heard you talking about wellness, I was thinking, woo woo, airy fairy, what is she doing over here? He's like, but now it makes sense what you're talking about. So I think
Mm,
people just aren't talking about it. Nobody is presenting this information to people to give them something different to think about and to help them
mhm.
see that it doesn't have to be either or. It can be, and honestly, it needs to be both and.
Yeah. It's interesting. My husband and I went to Dr. Joe Dispenza this past summer,
Mhm.
and, one of the first things he said to us was if he the work that he does is spiritual, but if he stood in a room and told people that it's spiritual, nobody would listen to him. And
Yeah.
so from the beginning, he said it's about science.
Yeah.
And when he presents it through the lens of science, then everyone wants to know more.
Mhm.
And then you pull in the spirituality. So I think that's where you're so profoundly unique is that you have this ability to link it to KPIs or talk strategy or, go to your engineering and systems background. And when you can approach it that way, then the business world can say, "Oh, this feels like I can be in alignment," versus someone that comes at it from a more, even though you have the spiritual side of that
Yeah.
inside of you, it's funny how, meet people where they are and speak in their language, like you said earlier.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and it opens the door, and once you sort of get in, then you can, as you're starting to weave some of those other concepts, because I do talk about spiritual energy, absolutely, without question.
Mm.
I think it is foundational to all of the work that I do, but when I talk about it, I'm talking about being in alignment. What are your values, right? So values as a business, we have those, now what are your
Mhm.
values as a person? How are you living in alignment? Just like your business, you want to live in alignment with these values that you have on your website. How are you living in alignment with your personal, values and what's important? So yeah, language makes all the difference sometimes. And just being able to speak the same language, but bring it from an organizational perspective to a personal perspective really does make a huge difference.
Mhm. So you're working with a leader who you can see, or you've been brought in for the reason that maybe the leaders are out of alignment. So when we look at that, I think you used the word harmony earlier, that harmony of, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual well-being. How do you see that it shows up in leadership right now when those things are not in alignment?
Yeah. So I think again for me that spiritual, that being in touch with your core values is really for me the foundation. It's the thread that gets pulled through everything.
Mhm.
And I think it shows up as being out of balance. In any of those 4 dimensions that you spoke of in different ways, right? So when I am, mentally not in balance with, with my mental well-being, I'm decision fatigued, I'm not focused, I'm not clear, um when I'm not living through my personal core values, right? I might be saying yes when I really wanna say no. Um, I'm making decisions, but I'm not making them from a place that feels good within me,
Mm.
and I'm not finding a whole lot of, joy or connection to the work that I'm doing. I'm doing it. I'm checking the boxes, I'm feeling really productive, but at the end of the day, I'm going like, it's not fulfilling, it's not personally,
Mhm.
fulfilling, and those are all signs that something's out of alignment, something's out of balance, or, I'm not sleeping, or I'm sleeping 2 hours a night or 3 hours a night, and I'm skipping breakfast, and I had a big cup of coffee and a granola bar, and I haven't drank water, and I don't know how long. Like, those are all of the things that are showing up, and I always say that if you're not paying attention to these areas, these different dimensions of your well-being, on paper, it might look like you're doing just a bang up job. But I'm
Mm.
telling you, you're not as good as you think you're not as good as you could be
Mm.
because you're not bringing a healthy whole self to the table. Like if you're doing great and you're not sleeping and you're decision fatigued, just imagine how awesome you could be if all of those things were being, nurtured. So,
Mhm. Well, and even to the point of, if the results are fabulous on paper and you go home feeling numb and unfulfilled every single night,
yeah.
is that really great? You
Yeah.
know?
And
Yeah.
redefining what success is, what great
Mhm.
really is. And I think, it's interesting. I think as we get older, s- maybe, I guess, I don't know. I'm saying it because I know I've done it myself, right? I'm 60. I'll be 61 in March. Um, as we get older, I feel like I've naturally relooked at what success is all about,
Absolutely.
what this life is all about and what am I doing with it. And maybe that happens, just naturally for other people, but like why wait till you're 60, cuz like you said, if
Mm.
you're going home every day feeling like, another day,
Mhm.
another day, another 25 cent or whatever they're saying these days, and you just get up and you're just on the hamster wheel doing it every day, like gosh, there's gotta be more to it than that.
Mhm.
Y And I'm not saying you have to, like, quit your job and go walk the Himalayas or anything like that. Like, you might love what you do, and I think that's amazing, but, like, let's find a way to get reconnected
Mm.
to what brought you the joy and the excitement in the first place with what you're doing.
Mhm. Love that perspective. And so on the flip side, now you've worked with someone for a period of time, you see them come into alignment. What do they notice and what do you notice in how they show up when you get them to that point?
Yeah, so they are noticing, more clarity. They're noticing, I say more harmony because I 'cause I'm funny about balance. I think that's something we've been
Oh,
told.
I'm with
Yeah,
you. You can never
yeah.
have balance.
You can't ever have
No.
balance, no. Balance makes some really weird assumptions that just don't hold up, right?
I'm
But
with you.
there's harmony.
Mhm.
There's harmony in your life, and things are not everything's not competing for space and time. It
Mhm.
flows, I think of it like an orchestra, right? There's a gazillion instruments in an orchestra, but all of them are not playing at 100% all the time, right? Sometimes some of them are not doing anything while somebody else is playing. And sometimes, you've got several playing together, but they're working with each other.
Mhm.
And so, when you've done this work and you're finding that balance between those different dimensions and you're nurturing yourself, you're in harmony, sometimes work is going to be the priority. It absolutely is, and that's okay. And you're not trying to feel bad because, you're not able to make every soccer game or, whatever.
Mhm.
But sometimes family is the priority, and that's okay too. And I'll say that for women, I think this is particularly a place where we struggle because we have natural rhythms, as women. There are times when our energy is like, "Woo!" out of the world, and other times when it's just not. That's just the reality of it. It's just not, but we work in spaces that don't acknowledge that,
Mhm.
and so we are almost forced to be not authentic to ourselves, not true to ourselves because, when it's that time and I'm crampy and grumpy and tired and, I still have to show up with the smile and the energy, and behind, I'm just like, "No, I really wanna do this right now." So, really trying to, learn and to nurture ourselves is just so important, for women, and when they do, they can then their schedules look different. So you talk about how do we show up differently, right? I know when these are my low times, so I'm not gonna put myself as best as I can in positions to make big decisions, have big things to do because I know my energy is low.
Mhm.
So, I'm going to do some of the routine things maybe that day or that week or whatever, and you begin to work your schedule differently. So yeah, it shows up in a lot of different ways.
Oh, it really does. I love that perspective. I actually speak to people about the fact that we are, as women, on a 30-day cycle and men are on a 24-hour cycle. And yet our systems were built for a 24-hour cycle. And so, we really do need to look like where are we in alignment and where do we have the energy? So I love, love, love that perspective. And then when you're older, that 30-day cycle, like how I track it now is the moon cycles because I recognize that actually my body is connected to those.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
it might not be true for everybody, and yet I know that it is for me, so I track, and there's, 4 clear different times throughout the month of what my body says it needs, and so and then I laugh at myself because then I get back into my old, like, corporate behavior and hustle grind behavior, and I'm like, "Yeah, I see it there in the calendar. Yes, it says rest, but I'm going to ignore that for some weird reason."
Right.
And then guess what's gonna happen? My body system is going to say it's gonna scream at me somehow, and so,
Yeah.
even that's fascinating because we've still grown up in these systems, and so even when we learn this harmony piece for ourselves and we're living in the world the way that it's designed, I know that I have to keep reminding myself and keep slowing down and keep practicing different ways that allow me to see it. And so, I'm curious for you when you're working with leaders that you find on this journey are finding a deeper ability to have that harmony. What are some of the things that you notice really support that, or some of the practices that are really encouraging in the work that you do?
Yeah. So, first and foremost, just what you said, that awareness, that
Mm.
self awareness, because life is gonna life, right? Life is gonna happen, and it's all gonna feel great, when you're new at it and you're in the moment, and then something is going to pull you off track. It just happens, right? That's a Thich Nhat Hanh says or said, this is why we practice, right? Because
Love.
it's always something, right? So first it's just being aware when you're getting pulled off, and what's pulling you off. So
Mm,
if you start to learn what's pulling you off, you can see it coming, right?
mhm,
But until you get to that point, just notice that you're getting pulled off. No judgment. Just notice that you're getting like pulled away from where that center was or your true north, however you want to call it. I think some practical things that or shifts or strategies that I see people is what you just said, normalizing rest and recovery, right?
mm.
It's not indulgent. It really is going to help you optimize your performance. There's all the science is behind, what the value of taking a break, stepping away from things, getting sleep, all the important work that happens when you let your brain step away and organize thoughts and things. It's shown scientifically you come back more innovative, more creative, more energized, all the things that you're trying to do anyway. So that's one of the things is just normalizing rest and recovery. I find building in what I call little micro practices, like I'm a huge fan of the power of pausing, whether that's a 2-second pause, a 5-minute pause, a 20-minute walk around the block, but just taking a moment, and this is one of my things, like, being where I am, because a lot of times when I'm hustling, I am not where I am, so I'm in the shower, but I'm already at the 11 o'clock meeting trying to no, just be here. Just be here where I am right now. Um, so just having that moment to pause or between meetings, because everybody's got back to back to back things, but just take like a moment, just that long. Close your eyes, do nothing, and just let your body reset. I'm leaving here. There's some space. I'm going to the next thing. Like just that
Mhm.
little 10 seconds can make such a huge difference for you. And then that awareness and that curiosity, just really
Mm,
encouraging that. What is it that energizes me? And noticing that and being aware and figuring out how do I work in a little bit more of that. And the same thing, what is it that drains me? And being aware and figuring out how do I begin to shift those things? So some small
mhm.
things I say they're small, but they can be life changing.
Well, for someone who hasn't practiced the pause, that can be massive to, when you're just hustling out every day. Even I'm guessing, and I know from working with the leaders I work with, just to say, "Let's pause. Let's take a deep breath."
Yeah.
That can be the hardest thing that they have actually ever tried to build in. So,
Hmm.
I think that that's where you get into these what seem like simple conversations are actually life-changing.
Yeah.
They're life-changing.
Yeah.
You talk about optimizing personal energy,
Hmm.
and I think what you just stated is a piece of that, but can you walk us through what that practically would mean to a leader sort of day in, day out?
Yeah, absolutely so. So again, thinking about those four dimensions of your well-being, your personal energy, so physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. So um practically setting intention in the
Mm,
morning. I know what my values are. They're not just things anecdotally I kind of feel or something on a piece of paper, but write them out, stick them somewhere so you can see them, and so that you're reminded, "How am I living this every day?" Right? So, again, it could that whole thing could be on a Post-it note, right? And that's it, but you're looking back at it, am I moving with integrity? Am I being honest? And then how do you pull that thread through everything? So if honesty is my thing for the day, my value for the day that I'm really gonna hone in on, am I being honest about what I'm putting into my body, and I'm expecting my body to perform really well? Am I being
Mhm.
honest about, how much sleep I'm getting and the importance of that, right? Am I being, I'm 3 hours, but yeah, am I being honest about if that's really enough? So how does that pull through? Um, Emotionally, right? Let's keep that thread going. Am I being honest, in my relationships, work and home, with boundaries, with the way that I'm interacting, even with the way that I'm bringing my energy? I might come home from a crazy day at work and everything just, kids and spouses and work and home and, stuff. But am I being honest? Can I just have like 3 minutes? I just need 3 minutes and I'm all yours. But can I have 3 minutes and go lock myself in the bathroom and just breathe for a second? Like, am I being honest? Mentally, you know, being honest, am I really feeling clear
Mm.
about what I'm doing, about how I'm interacting with other people, especially as leaders, because people watch us
Mm.
and people are going to model what we do, whether we realize it or not. So, am I being honest in the way that I'm teaching people, the unspoken things that, the culture, the way that I'm contributing to the culture at where I work. So yeah, I think again that self-awareness, that recognition in those different areas, um, it starts to show up and you start to go, maybe I'm not being so honest with myself because I've been having coffee and donuts, know, every day forever. I
Yeah.
haven't drank water in a month,
Mhm.
except in the coffee, of course. Somehow that counts. No, it doesn't, but
That's hilarious. I've never had anyone say that to me before. I love that.
I've had many people like, "But you make coffee with water, doesn't it count?"
Oh, that's great.
No.
No.
In case you're wondering out there, no, it doesn't.
Oh, that's awesome. What about for yourself? Because obviously the work that you do, your own energy is so vital to, just like you were saying, to mirror and show the example of. And so what are some of your own specific rituals or non-negotiables that you anchor into?
Yeah, absolutely, and that is the one thing that I'm very clear about is, I'm not exempt, right? Just because I help people, I am not exempt from falling apart,
Mhm.
just like somebody else might. So, my non-negotiables are, sleep for one. Like I even on the weekends, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, I'm like, bye everybody. Unless something super special is going on. I am getting my sleep. Like, nobody's gonna mess with my sleep. Um, Part of my naturopathic background is in nutrition, so I do
Mhm.
eat really well. I have moments when I don't, I'm human, but for the most part, I feed myself well. Um, I'm getting better, because again, this is why we practice with understanding my boundaries with people. Um, and that was probably harder for me than anybody else was to create those boundaries. Um, Having gratitude, finding gratitude all the time, in different things, even when things are just going wonky, wonky. And another non-negotiable, and again, I have to practice it all the time, is being where I am because I find that, for me, when I'm too far ahead, I'm anxious. There's a lot of anxiety in a moment that hasn't even happened yet. And so I'm very mindful about just being here and knowing like, yeah, and I ask myself, like, okay, here we are, Lenise. What are you needing? What are you wanting? What are you lacking? And I kind of look around and I'm like, nothing. Everything's good. And I'm like,
Mm,
okay, then everything is good. Period. That's it. Like, what's going to happen 2 weeks from now? I can't control it. I can be in this moment and do things to prepare for 2 weeks from now. But I can't take my mind 2 weeks from now with and I'm dating myself, with the Hewlett Packard what ifs, right? I can't do that. I can't do that. So, but I can prepare. But even in that, I have to be here doing that work.
mhm,
Um, so yeah, be living in the present is just really, really big,
mhm,
for me. It lessens my stress
mhm,
in wonderful ways. So yeah,
mhm.
and
I l
moving.
I love how you say and movement, yeah. I love how you say, "Be here," because I think everyone is saying, "Be present, be present, be present," and if you haven't practiced being present, I think it's another one of those, cliches that we could just
Mhm,
just kinda go over people's heads, sure, like, of course I'm being present. But the way that you described it today of being here, being wherever you are, be there, takes it that richer, deeper place of even when you describe being like, be in the shower,
yeah.
like, actually experience the soap on your skin, and, I think about I was thinking I don't know why I thought this, but when you were describing that, I'm like, "Can you imagine how many people probably get out of the shower and haven't even rinsed the cream rinse off their hair because they're, like, somewhere else in that moment, right? And we're
Yeah,
such on autopilot with everything, so
exactly.
I think, for our audience listening, really think about that. Like, where are you right now and how do you be in that moment? And
Mhm,
I certainly notice in our household, my husband's an executive and we've got, young, just out of university kids that have moved back into the house. And,
mhm,
we've got a busy life like everybody else does.
yeah.
That is when I notice the rhythm of the house is off.
Mm,
I can feel when people are sitting in the room together and they're actually not in the room together.
mhm,
And I can feel that with leaders. You can feel that when you're sitting in different things. It's like, are you here right
here.
now? So I really love how you planted that for us. That's beautiful.
Nice, yeah.
I'm wondering how you're noticing so much going on in the world today. There's so much going on in the world today. And I know that everyone listening is like, yes, we can acknowledge there's so much going on in the world.
Yeah.
And the speed of change is I thought the speed of change was fast 5 years ago. Now it's it's like, I don't know, we need a new title. It's not even the speed of change. It's like I don't know, it's
Yeah.
so fast. And so what are you noticing in your spaces
Mhm.
about sort of some of the narratives in leadership, and where do you see that we might have some exciting shifts coming?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm seeing that I'm hearing more is this this novel idea that organizations, companies are really people.
Mm.
They're
Tell me
not
more
the
about that.
they're not the building, right?
Mhm.
They're not even the products or the things that you build. Because if all the people walked away, you wouldn't have an organization. And I think there is from some leaders a new recognition about the importance of people. The
Nice.
importance of people in their organizations and understanding that well people um
Mm.
will do all the things you need them to do to get the products produced and meet the bottom line and meet the KPIs and all of those things. And so I think we're starting to embrace, and it's challenging. It's a big
Mm.
shift, but I think we're starting to embrace what a lot of people call these soft skills, this wellness, the woo woo, right? I
Yeah.
think we're I think we're starting to go, there's something to this.
Mhm.
And it may not be from an organizational perspective, it may not be the organization's responsibility to make sure that you're well. That is personal, but I think
Mm.
in some organizations, and some are able to address it easier than others, maybe because of size and that kind of thing. But I think there's beginning to be some recognition of the systems. Talk about systems, the systems that people are being placed in organizations. How are those systems supporting
Mm.
people's well-being? Like, that's the responsibility, I think. That's the responsibility or of the organization. Again, when you look back at corporate wellness programs, go to the lunch and learn, go to the meditation thing,
Yeah.
but you're not allowed to leave work, or you have to take PTO to go, and okay, so what are
Right.
we doing here, guys? Like,
Yeah.
so what kind of system do we have that's supporting all of these things? I think that's the part that the organization plays, and I think organizations, some are starting to see their role in the well-being of their employees and trying to make some changes. We talk about burnout a lot, and unfortunately, a lot of times when we talk about burnout, we look at the person and like it's what did you do? You couldn't handle it. You burned out,
Yeah.
right?
Of course.
And certainly, maybe I'm not physically nurturing myself, I'm not eating, I'm not sleeping, all of those things. So yeah, I do take some responsibility in that, but I think there is also a systemic role that organizations play in people burning out because of, you know, the systems that these people are in. So how do those 2 things come together? I think
Mhm.
that's a big opportunity for a shift right now organizationally,
Mhm.
um, is really looking at cultures and looking at systems and saying, "How are we contributing to this
Yeah,
or not?"
I love
Yeah.
that. How do you describe burnout? I'm curious. Because again, it's another one of those things everyone's kind of throwing the word around. And what would you say is the difference maybe between probably the beginning stages, and I may or may not have this right, so feel free to correct me, but,
Mhm.
exhaustion and then to burnout. So what
Yeah.
does that look like?
Yeah, it is. It's interesting. Burnout really does happen on a continuum. And we're all on the continuum somewhere because the beginning
Yes.
of the continuum is like, yay, this is the best thing in the world. It's exciting. New job, new project, right? That's the start. That's the
Right.
beginning.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and then, right, so then you kind of go from that to what I call like the bloom is off the flower. And it's, same day, different stuff, whatever. It's not quite as exciting anymore. You sort of move into another space as you're moving down the continuum of self-doubt. Am I really cut out for this? You're not having that connection. You're starting to feel disconnected from your work. I think when you hit burnout, and there are a lot of people, there are a lot of people that say they're burned out and they're not, right? They're tired, they're stressed, they might be exhausted, but they're not really burnout. Like, burnout is is a place of um functional dysfunction,
Mm.
dysfunctional functioning. Yeah. Like,
Mhm.
you are burnout is not something that gets relieved in a weekend physically, the fatigue of it. It's not something that gets relieved in a weekend. It doesn't get relieved um when you take a week off and you go on vacation, you go on a cruise, right?
Mhm.
Because you come back to the same thing with the same behaviors. So you're just going to end up back in the same space. But it is really a point where you are functionally dysfunctional.
Mhm.
Um, Everything feels heavy. Don't ask me what we're doing for dinner. I can't make one more decision. Right? I
Mhm.
just, like, physically, I just don't
Mhm.
have the brain cells to do it. Like, I just can't. Like,
Mhm.
that's burnout. Like, I just can't, like, I just can't. I can't muster it up.
And the
Um,
functioning dysfunction is people can go on like that and still have a facade of doing their doing their job.
yeah, because we
Yeah.
have normalized being exhausted, being overwhelmed, um, pushing through, hustling. We have normalized it. And so, again, there are a lot of people, burnout can be a little cliche. There are a lot of people, oh my God, I'm so burned out, but there are definitely some folks who are burned out and they're just shells of themselves, existing. And unfortunately, there are signs. And I think burnout happens, and I know for me, because I've gone through it a couple of times here, it happened in different, it showed up in different dimensions. So physically, it was fatigue, right? It showed up that way. But I had another burnout moment where it was real um, emotional for me. The
Mm,
emotional disconnection and
mhm,
exhaustion of
mhm,
there was no joy. There was no real connection in relationships.
mhm,
Yeah, so it can show up in those different areas as
mhm.
being depleted. And a lot of times though, the physical, honestly, I think is like the last step. Like your body is going to be like, "Hey, I've been trying to tell you all this
Right.
time." Um and unfortunately, that's the wake up call for a lot of people when they're seeing more medicines, the more medicines are coming because now my blood pressure's up, or, we don't think about you don't think about your health until you don't have it.
Yeah. Well
Um,
said.
yeah, or heaven forbid something really bad happens and then, all that time management KPI stuff, like who
Doesn't
cares?
matter.
I'm over here trying to live right now. So, hopefully we listen before then, because the cost of neglecting your well-being can be it
Mhm,
can be big. It can be
mhm.
big. Yeah.
I think I see this generation of leaders that are, I'm in my late 50s, so, our generation of leaders, I'm going to say, who wore it as the badge of honor, didn't know any different.
Yeah.
That's sort of the culture of survival was that. And if the whites of your eyes weren't seen more than someone else's, then you weren't getting the promotion or you weren't successful, all of those things.
Yep.
What I find interesting is our generation of children are now in the workforce.
Mhm.
And so it's, really watching how they navigate and have we learned enough to ensure that we haven't passed it on, even though
Mm.
cellularly we have,
Mhm.
but that consciousness of are we really shifting? Are we really having the right conversations? Are we ahead of it? Are we recognizing it? And so the work you're doing in the world is so important
Thank
to
you.
be able to shift the stories. Because from where I sit, I believe wholeheartedly, and I know you do too, that when these things merge and coexist, businesses actually thrive.
Yes.
Because to your point, people are the business.
Yeah.
And when people are more creative and more connected and more collaborative and more curious because they have the energy to be those things,
Yeah.
look out world. That's where magic happens. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely so. Yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to leave our audience with?
Yeah, I think if there's one thing that I would really want people to take away, it's just that success and well-being don't have to compete. They really do work together to strengthen each other. And I have really found, I feel like, my passion and my niche in helping leaders to elevate their well-being so that they can stop choosing between their health and
Mhm.
their success. Like both and, no more either or. So, yeah, to your audience, if you have been feeling stretched thin, or, you're just ready to create a little more harmony, without losing your edge, I absolutely invite you, to head over to my website, 2iwellness.com, and book some time with me. Book an alignment session. We can talk about what's keeping you stuck in that hustle mode and see if we can't map out a few shifts that we can work on together to help bring things back into alignment. So it's not a competition. It's not a competition. You
Oh,
can have it all.
you can have it all from a new lens.
Right. Yes.
Dr. Lynise, thank you so much for sharing your gifts with us here today. It was such a pleasure, and I can already feel the ripple effect of the work that you're doing in the world. So keep shining your light, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Laura. I appreciate it.
What a powerful conversation with Dr. Lynise Green. I hope you're walking away with not just a few aha moments, but also some practical ways to restore your energy, reclaim your balance, and expand your impact as a leader. Because around here in this community, we are looking for a new era of leadership. And today we heard some ways to walk into that. If you'd like to connect with Lanice, you can find her at wellwithL.com on LinkedIn at LinkedIn Lanice Green ND or on Instagram at Well with Lanice. And if this episode spoke to you, share it with a fellow leader who needs the reminder that success and well-being are not an either or. These two things can and must coexist. They are meant to flow together. Until next time, keep leading, keep expanding, and remember, you are a part of the new movement of leadership.